Hello, ladies and gentlemen, one and all watching on YouTube. We are arriving here for the final event of Daytona Speedweek. It is race number 1 of Season 10 NNSCRA Walmart Cup Series. I am Levi McIntyre, a.k.a. Thrash Maniac 99, the voice of NNSCRA Walmart Cup Series. Here to welcome you to the great American race, the Daytona 500 at Daytona International Speedway, to conclude what has been a pretty exciting Daytona Speedweek. Anthony McCreary won the Bud Shootout in what was an interesting duel there. Charles Jackson, Steven Guerrero were the original front row starters for the Daytona 500. Gatorade duel number 1, Charles Jackson ended up crashing out. Matt McIntyre won that race and ends up getting the pole. Duel number 2, Steven Guerrero kept his car pretty much intact and kept the number 2 spot, with Kyle Keith winning duel number 2, and he got to start 4th. And so, and Matt McIntyre also was the fastest in final practice yesterday. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the big race, the Daytona 500. But let's take a look at the top 10 lineup. Matt McIntyre on the pole with Steven Guerrero second. Row 2 is Tanner Sullivan and Kyle Keith. Row 3, Joseph Strigley and William Duncan. Row 4, Anthony Ritchie, Nick Alton. And then row 5, Blaine Keys and Sean Galligan. Starting in the last row are the only 2 cars that had to go to backup cars after what happened in duel number 1, Charles Jackson and Sean Henley. Excuse me. But with that said, let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for this race, shall we, people?
Drivers, start your engines!
And there you have it. So, like I said, we had a big wreck in duel number 1, and it was really the only major crash that we have had since the beginning of Daytona Speedweek. And it involved 4 cars. It was Jesse Setti, Carson Scott, Charles Jackson, and Sean Henley, with 3 of those cars ended up either up in the air or flipping, with those being Setti, Scott, and Jackson, with both the 22 and the 29 up into the catch fence. 29 ended up sliding upside down, and Charles Jackson went for a quick barrel roll. But with Carson Scott not in this race, and everyone else is, Setti's car needed some repairs. And so as a result, she ended up having to start in the back of the field to begin with anyways. Jackson and Henley, on the other hand, both had to end up starting in the back because of where they finished, but Jackson ended up having to go to a backup car and was forced to relinquish the front position starting spot and gave it to the winner of Duel 1, Matt McIntyre. Excuse me. So now we are getting set to go racing for 40 laps. As pit stops are going to be a factor. Boogity, 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 let's go racing. Excuse me. Lap 1 complete in the books for this event. And Joseph Strigley leads lap number 1. Brand new driver to the series, who I have seen compete in other series like the NNSCRA Hershey's Cup Series. He's racing for not Evernham, Richard Petty Motorsports in the number 45, a brand new teammate to Sean Galligan and Joshua Collard. And so far, right now, he's doing a good job running up at the front here in the beginning of this race. But behind Trent Dunham, it's pretty much 3x3, many rows deep. This is the kind of play racing I think people have been wanting to see happen again for quite a while, because last season wasn't necessarily the best of notes for plate racing, as they all ended up being mostly domination fests, or it just wasn't as good as you would hope. But Strigley leading the way, led both laps so far, but now we're seeing some people come up into the picture. But Michael Norman starting to lose the pack a little bit. He's hoping that a couple of people in front of him will drop back for him a little bit so he can catch right back up. Oh, and I heard we got a crash. Oh, it's a huge crash in the back of the field, and it's going to take out less than half the cars in the field. Caution is definitely out. Out of the cars I see notable with damage, I see Steven Guerrero's damaged. Quite a number of cars damaged. Trent Dunham was involved. Kevin Shearer was in it. Dorian Facepuncher. James Richardson, I know, got a piece of it. Sean Henley, Steven Guerrero, Chris Washer, Preston Plord, Zach Rogers, Johnny Gardner, Blaine Keys, PJ Williams, Jessica Shelton, Anthony Ritchie, Austin Mongold might have gotten involved, Seth Cole, Matt McIntyre, the pole sitter, was even involved. Michael Norman, of course, was in it. We're going to have probably less than half the field left running for the remainder of the race. So, with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at a replay of what brought the caution out for the first time today here in the Daytona 500. Well, basically, this wreck started up and around the third spot as they were going 4 wide. Johnny Gardner slides up into Dorian Facepuncher, Kyle Matthews, Preston Plord, and that's going to end up causing a big chain reaction. Many cars just piled in with nowhere to go, and the track ended up getting completely blocked at one point, and then cars trying to get through but just could not see, and ends up going around, and it was just chaos. Absolute chaos. Excuse me on that one again. And I just noticed I forgot to turn smoke on. I will fix that once we go back green. But yeah, either a lot of cars are going to be out of the race or off the pace for the rest of the race. So that was quite a huge blow to a lot of cars. But Joseph Strigley still your leader, or at least maybe. Let's go ahead and take you to the restart here in Daytona. Well, shockingly, not a whole bunch of cars are retired. Only 8 cars retired out of the race as a result of that big one. And they were Jessica Shelton, Anthony Ritchie, Kyle Matthews, Preston Plord, Dorian Facepuncher, Kevin Shearer, Seth Cole, and Trent Dunham. But we are going to have quite a quite a big amount of cars that are probably going to be off the pace or with no hoods. So Joseph Strigley is your leader. Second is Charles Sanford. Third is Austin LaPlante. Fourth is Kyle Keith. Fifth is Nick Alton. Sixth is David Rivera. Seventh, Dylan Young. Eighth, Carson Gum. Ninth is Peachy London. 10th, Dylan Thoreau. 11th, John Cittadino. 12th, Joshua Collard. 13th, is Chase Oliver. 14th, William Duncan. 15th, Sean Henley. 16th, Zach Flickinger. 17th, Austin Mongold. 18th, Tanner Sullivan. 19th, Tim Walsh. 20th is Charles Jackson. 21st, Steven Guerrero. 22nd, Matt McIntyre. 23rd, DJ Curtis. 24th, PJ Williams. 25th is Sean Galligan. 26th is Zach Rogers. 27th, Blaine Keys. 28th, James Richardson. 29th, Chris Washer. 30th, Jesse Setti. 31st is Anthony McCrory. 32nd, James McLeod. 33rd, Michael Norman. 34th is Johnny Gardner. As a lot of cars are getting separated as a result of a couple cars having problems with bunching up there. But the green flag is back out with 33 laps to go. Excuse me. Again, phlegm. Here in the Daytona 500. But Joseph Strigley has so far led every lap in this race. And I think out of all these people, I think there's only a couple of off-the-pace cars that these drivers are going to have to put up with. Sean Henley, I think, is one of them. Perhaps. Although Steven Guerrero appears to be running up to speed despite a tad buckle on his hood. Matt McIntyre's a little bit off the pace. Zach Rogers seems to be up to speed, so either or, it's still going to be quite a race as Joseph Strigley leads. But now here comes the defending champion of the series, Dylan Young, to the bottom. With help from fellow Ford, Pichu London. Zach Flickinger about got turned right there. I don't know, Sean Henley appears to be running up to speed. I don't know. It looks like everybody on back to about James Richardson, I think, are all still up to speed. Oh, a couple cars coming into pit road. Dylan Thoreau, John Cittadino. Could this be pit strategy if this race goes into a green flag run for quite a while? I don't know, but they're the only two to come in. I think for Thoreau, he's going to try and repair some of that damage on the left side. Same with Cittadino. Some of those scrapes that they got during the big one when they were trying to get through. But I don't know, they're staying in there for quite a while. Maybe the damage they sustained is far more serious. Or I don't know, Cittadino's back out and his side has been repaired. But Dylan Thoreau's still on pit road, but now he's repaired and now back out. So, took a little longer than expected because of damage repair. But they'll be back out on track, so they're hoping for these guys to end up pitting and they can stay out a little longer. So, interesting strategy perhaps for those two. Though, it might have cost them a lot of time because they had to stay a little bit longer than normal to repair those scrape damages. Excuse me, on the right sides of their cars. Although the main pack is split into two separate packs, so I think that's a result of when Cittadino and Thoreau came into pit road. But Carson Gum led that lap, but here comes David Rivera with a run to the inside. As we are over a quarter of the way through the Daytona 500. I apologize for that phlegm. I really apologize for that. I'm just trying to make sure I don't mess myself up. But what an amazing block there by David Rivera, shutting the door on Kyle Keith to try and keep that top spot going. Joseph Strigley back in third, trying to work his way up, back up to the front. I see Nick Alton is up here, and Nick Alton has had a pretty successful speed weeks. He qualified well in the qualifying sessions, finished well in the duels, got to start in the top 10, and he's right now running in fourth at the time, or for the time being. It's like the middleman between the two packs is Zach Flickinger right now. So it looks like the main pack, excuse me, is a 13-car main pack. And then after Flickinger, it's pretty much, this pack is basically 10 cars. And then a mini pack of cars right here, and then there's a couple that are just separated. But anyways, Joseph Strigley now trying to get back into the lead, taking the lead away from Kyle Keith. I see a couple people who we haven't really talked about all day so far. Chase Oliver representing Team Heel Motorsports. Now moving into third, Tim Walsh, who I forgot to change the paint scheme to or the 5-hour energy colors, but it's okay. Running up here as well, but now they have caught Michael Norman, and that's going to, whoa, nearly a wreck with Strigley. That could have been a big disaster, but now that's going to cause this main pack to get separated a little bit, because now the top two have broken away, and that high lane with Kyle Keith and Carson Gum has gotten held up, but that actually helps Zach Flickinger a little bit catch back up into the pack. So that helped Flickinger find a way to get back up into the main draft pack. Whoa! Nearly gets slammed by the 3. And now Michael Norman coming on to pit road. Could they force him to be parked? According to the management of NNSCRA, could they park the 3 for being too slow? Let's see. Yes, indeed, he's out of the race. So I guess NNSCRA has decided to park the 3 of Michael Norman because he's now forced retired out of the race. Excuse me. Again. But anyway, Zach Flickinger's still working on trying to catch back up for sure into that main draft. He has a bit of a gap between himself and David Rivera. Let's see the distance between those two. A little over 6'10", so I don't think that's going to be enough to catch back up. But Nick Alton led that lap, and now Dylan Young goes back up to the front. Excuse me again. But looking around to make sure of no incidents occurring, as this second pack that's led by James Richardson in the 15th spot has started to kind of spread out a little bit. Though 3 wide battle right here with Zach Rogers really up high. As meanwhile, the main pack is still going strong with Flickinger starting to lose the pack once again. Dylan Young leads with LaPlante second, but here comes Austin Mongold with a run underneath of LaPlante. As we are a few laps away from halfway through the Daytona 500, as Austin Mongold made a big evasive move to get to the bottom to try and get a run on the 2 of Dylan Young for the lead. Oh, some smoke! I think somebody might have spun on pit road. Or they might have had engine failure. I'm not sure, but I don't see any cars on pit road unless they are retired. No, I guess not. Something had to happen on pit road because there was a big smoke linger right there, and it looked like, yeah, they spun. Or they might have saved it. I'm not entirely sure. And I'm trying to figure out, trying to pinpoint of who it could have been. Could it have been Dylan Thoreau because he's now lost a lot of time in comparison to everybody else. I'm not entirely sure, but you'll see on the lower right of your screen what happened right there as far as who ended up spinning out on pit road or on the apron, entering pit road and then through the grass. Because I don't see anybody else listed as out of the race, other than the only other one that has is Michael Norman, and he was forced to be parked because of being too slow on track. But now it's 3 wide for the lead, all of them Fords. Oh, but we got pit stops happening. Kind of figured this was going to happen. Mongold, Dylan Young, among others, are on pit road. But Pichu London leads that lap. Johnny Gardner, I think, is getting done with his, or he's on pit road now. So this could definitely shape up the rest of this race. As we are looking around to make sure of things. But Pichu London is your leader, but now here comes Kyle Keith with help from Austin LaPlante and Nick Alton. But now Keith gets forced up high, and here comes LaPlante and Alton with a run to the inside. But are they coming in? Yes, they are. But they were the only ones out of that group of cars to come into pit road, and now here comes James Richardson. And so far, that's all of the cars I've seen come on the pit road. Excuse me. So the only ones that I see that haven't pitted yet are Kyle Keith, Pichu London, Joseph Strigley, Chase Oliver, and Charles Sanford. Those are the only ones that I see on track that haven't come to pit road yet. As now these guys are going by other cars, but now here they come to pit road, those 5. Excuse me for both things. But anyways, who even knows who's going to be the leader at this point because of everything that's getting shuffled around in such a big way. Anthony McCrory coming out of pit road now. Of course, Anthony McCrory is the only Red Bull racing car in this race. The other 3 of Jonathan Zorline, Dougie Shears, and Emmanuel Hartnett did not make the race. Alright, as we continue to look around to see who could be the leader. Right now, I think it would still be Kyle Keith, unless there are people coming in hot, and I think we're going to get a new leader momentarily, and that would be David Rivera now up at the front. So I think once we get to the line here to complete lap 23, we're going to get the updated rundown of the field, as right now it's pretty much Roush Racing 1-2, David Rivera, Austin Mongold. And now they're going to split up for a battle for the lead. Rivera leads, but here comes Mongold with a run on the inside with help from Carson Gum. So now, let's look at the full field rundown. It is, well, let me double check, make sure. I think McLeod was the last one to pit. So anyways, Austin Mongold is your leader. Second is Carson Gum. Third, David Rivera. Fourth, Dylan Young. Fifth, Joshua Collard. Sixth is Kyle Keith. Seventh, Pichu London. Eighth, Joseph Strigley. Ninth is Charles Sanford. 10th, Zach Flickinger. 11th is Nick Alton. 12th, Tim Walsh. 13th, Austin LaPlante. 14th, Chase Oliver. 15th, William Duncan. 16th, Zach Rogers. 17th, Tanner Sullivan. 18th, Steven Guerrero. 19th, James Richardson. 20th, Sean Henley. 21st, Matt McIntyre. 22nd, Blaine Keys. 23rd, Chris Washer. 24th, Anthony McCrory. 25th is Sean Galligan. 26th, DJ Curtis. 27th, Dylan Thoreau. 28th, John Cittadino. 29th, Charles Jackson. And then a lap down now in 30th, Jesse Setti, and then Johnny Gardner, PJ Williams, James McLeod are all one lap down, and everybody else out of the race. But now Austin Mongold still maintaining the lead. But unless a caution were to come out, as now Cittadino is on pit road, and Dylan Thoreau, so they had to make their pit stops late. So I think the only way a lot of these cars are going to have a chance to win is if another caution were to come out. But they're pretty much spread out all over the place to the point where I don't think really a big one is going to happen or any wrecks are going to occur, at least at this moment. But you never know. As now we have a new leader, Dylan Young, back up into the lead as we are coming to 14 to go here in the Daytona 500. There's Dylan Thoreau and John Cittadino out of the pits. And now they both have gone a lap down as a result. Battle for second among Roush teammates, Austin Mongold, David Rivera. So unless a caution were to come out or pit strategy kicks in once again, it looks like the race is going to come down to one of these four. Dylan Young, Austin Mongold, David Rivera, and Carson Gum. Joshua Collard 5th, but he is nearly 5.5 seconds back. And now they caught Dylan Thoreau, so now that actually helped to bring in those other three cars that were behind Dylan Young into a bit more of a pack formation. And now Dylan Young slams the door on Austin Mongold as far as making a move to blocks him to keep that spot. And now they're catching up to John Cittadino to add him up here in this pack along with Thoreau. Oh, the caution is out. This is going to change everything. Let's see what happened. Oh, huge barrel roll for Austin LaPlante. Steven Guerrero involved. Joseph Strigley, Zach Rogers. Crazy barrel roll for the 48. Caution, Zach Rogers on the pit road. Caution immediately out. This is going to shake things up big time for the rest of this race. So now, all those guys who were separated from the top four are going to be right back in it. But ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take a look. First, we're going to try and find, in case it wasn't shown on the lower right of your screen earlier, we're going to take a look and see who ended up spinning out on out of turn 4, and then we're going to look at what brought the caution out for the second time today. Here's a look at what happened out of turn 4. Right here, Steven Guerrero gets in the Blaine Keys, and that ends up spinning Charles Jackson around. And that's how he ended up going for that long spin slide off of turn 4 entering pit road. But he managed to save it and get back on track without collecting anybody. And that's why, and I guess because of the fact he spun off the track, the reason why NNSCRA didn't bring a caution out for that. But now, let's take a look and see what brought the caution out for the second time today here in the Daytona 500 in what looked to be a very, very serious crash. Well, this is going to start once they get into turn number 3. It's like right there, Joseph Strigley runs Austin LaPlante completely out of room and ends up getting himself and the 48 spun around. Now, everything looks fine right here, but then the second pack of cars is going to come crashing in. As there you see them coming into 3 now. It looked like these guys were going to be able to keep it going, but then a couple cars that were on the apron, Steven Guerrero and Zach Rogers, and then right there the big hits, and there was the big hit from Steven Guerrero into the 48, and Austin LaPlante goes for one of the wildest rides in recent memory at Daytona. Barrel rolled and flipped 9 times. Probably, arguably, this could be the wildest ride in the history of Daytona in this series. That was a pretty vicious hit for not only himself, but for Joseph Strictly from both the 9 and the 8. Now, let's look back at those two guys, the 8 and the 9, and see why they were on the apron for. Let's see. Oh, I think because they saw the smoke, they thought if they go to the apron they could avoid any problems, but they didn't notice they were stuck in between the apron and the racetrack, and that's how they ended up getting slammed. And then everybody else who was coming in behind that pack ended up missing it by going up high, though Blaine Keys was so close to hitting the 8, and that could have been a major problem, but man, just a brutal crash right there that ends up with the number 48 of Austin LaPlante going for probably the wildest ride in Walmart Cup Series at Daytona. But anyways, let's go ahead and take you to the restart here in the Daytona 500. We now have 29 cars left in the field, 23 on the lead lap. New cars out of the race are Joseph Strigley, Austin LaPlante, Steven Guerrero, Zach Rogers. And when we get back racing, it'll be 8 laps to go in the Daytona 500. But now, this race is going to get unpredictable because there's going to be slow machines right in between the fast cars and lap machines as well. But Kyle Keith is your leader. Second is Pichu London. Third is Nick Alton. Fourth, Charles Sanford. Fifth, Chase Oliver. Sixth is Dylan Young. 7th, Austin Mongold. 8th, Carson Gum. 9th, Tim Walsh. 10th, William Duncan. 11th is Joshua Collard. 12th is Zach Flickinger. 13th, James Richardson. 14th, Sean Henley. 15th, Tanner Sullivan. 16th, David Rivera. 17th, Anthony McCrory. 18th, Blaine Keys. 19th is Matt McIntyre. 20th, Sean Galligan. 21st, Charles Jackson. 22nd, DJ Curtis. 23rd, Chris Washer. And then everybody else that is still on track are a lap down. James McLeod, John Cittadino, Jesse Setti, P.J. Williams, Johnny Gardner, Dylan Thoreau are all a lap down. So, this is going to be an interesting restart because there's going to be a few cars that might get held up by slower machines or lapped machines. And I'm thinking few of these cars, I think, did not pit under that caution. So this is going to get interesting. Pace car pulling into pit road. Green flag is waving for the next 8 laps of the Daytona 500. The final 8 laps of the 500. But Kyle Keith pulling down underneath Dylan Thoreau, but Pichu London, Nick Alton follow suit. And then you got Sanford and Oliver working together, and that kind of separates with Cittadino up there. Carson Gunn trying to get by. They're all trying to find ways around. Nick Alton trying to get the bottom to work underneath Pichu London for second. As back here in the back, it's 3x3, several rows deep, but with a lot of them being the slower machines. Nobody up at the front. That I don't reckon some of these guys pitted, but I could be wrong in that. But either or, Kyle Keith still your leader. Charles Sanford trying to make a run for it up at the front. Chase Oliver trying to do the same thing. These guys are running out of time to make something happen. I mean, it is all still pretty much one pack. It's just there's a few dissonance going on that's between with like Richardson and Flickinger, and they're all not really in a cohesive unit right now. So who knows what's going to happen. But Charles Sanford now is the leader. Leads with 6 laps to go here in the Daytona 500. As we continue to look around the field to see what's happening, cars are trying to get some formations going to get into a big pack so they can catch back up to the leaders. Otherwise, their chances of winning are going to be pretty much gone. And I think now the pack has separated into 2 because Chris Washer's holding up people, so that's going to end up causing some problems. Sanford doing the best he can to try and hold off everybody in sight for that top spot. And Charles Sanford has won many races in this series, but he hasn't ever won the Daytona 500, or at Daytona, for that matter. Sanford now going to get challenged by Nick Alton in the 30 for Tweenix. He's got to run to the inside. Chase Oliver trying to get up there as well. Carson Gum back up here, and then 2 Roush cars. Pichu London, Austin Mongold trying to get up there together. Kyle Keith in the pack. Dylan Thoreau may be in the pack, but he is 2 laps down. So yeah, pretty much this race is I'm thinking it's going to come down to whoever's running in the top 7 at the moment. Still looking around to keep an eye on things to make sure nothing crazy is happening. Chase Oliver forced up high in a 3-wide battle with Kyle Keith, Charles Sanford, but Nick Alton still leads as he has his Tweenix teammate Carson Gum right on his tail. And then followed by 2 Roushketeers in Mongold and London. Kyle Keith, the only car of Ganassi that's up here running in the battle. Chase Oliver for Team Heel Motorsports and Charles Sanford for Retro Racing Enterprises. Dylan Thoreau 2 laps down, but a Roushketeer. So Roush has a bit of an advantage as far as team membership up here at the front, no matter what they're doing. But now the 2 Tweenix cars are split as here comes Carson Gum with a run to the inside as we are coming to take 2 laps to go. It's 2 to go at the line, and things are about to get probably even more dicey now among these drivers. Top 7 still all within reach of one another. Chase Oliver could easily make a run up there to the front at any moment, and it would be crazy. But Kyle Keith now back up to the lead. But here comes Charles Sanford with a run to the inside once again. Pichu London, Chase Oliver trying to get the bottom lane to work for themselves as we are coming to take the white flag here in the Daytona 500. White flag is waving. Last chance for one of these 7 in the main on the lead lap of this 8-car pack to make something work. Oh man, they are about to go 4 wide. And there goes, whoa, Alton and Gum get into the wall, and that's going to ruin their chances. Good thing there wasn't a major crash there. But now it's going to come down to the top 5. Who's going to win it? Sanford in the lead. Keith second. Battle for third with Oliver, Mongold, and London. Dylan Thoreau 2 laps down trying to help his teammate out. Who is going to win it? Kyle Keith with a run on Charles Sanford. Can he make a move? Can he do it? I don't think he's going to. Checkered flag waving. Big win. Charles Sanford wins the Daytona 500 at Daytona International Speedway. What a start to the season for Retro Racing Enterprises. Charles Sanford. I believe this would be his 7th career win. 7th or 8th, I can't remember, but Charles Sanford wins probably the biggest race of his career, or maybe among them. He is a former Daytona 500 winner in Snickers Cup, but he wins the Daytona 500 here in Walmart Cup. What a run for the 03 car. And I think he ran out of fuel, so these guys who didn't pit barely had enough gas to make it to the end. So, what a strategy for those guys. But let's look at the rest of the results. Kyle Keefe concludes a successful Speed Weeks with a great finish in the 2nd position. Chase Oliver, solid performance in 3rd. Solid run for Austin Mongold in the 4th position. And then Pichu London, great run in 5th. Great run for Nick Alton in the 6th position, though he was in contention at the end to win, but he and Carson Gum got the wall from a near 4-wide incident happening. And speaking of Carson Gum, solid performance for him in 7th. Great run for Dylan Young in 8th. Solid performance for David Rivera in 9th. And then great run in 10th for Zach Flickinger. The rest of the top 20 was Joshua Collard, James Richardson, Tim Walsh, William Duncan, Charles Jackson, Matt McIntyre, DJ Curtis, Sean Galligan, Blaine Keys, Anthony McCurry. And then the final 3 cars that finished the race on the lead lap were Sean Henley, Chris Washer, Tanner Sullivan. Then from 24th to 29th, everybody finished a lap or 2 down. John Cittadino, Jesse Setti, James McLeod, Johnny Gardner, PJ Williams, and Dylan Thoreau. And everybody else was out of the race after all the chaos that ensued. Joseph Strigley, Austin LaPlante, Steven Guerrero, Zach Rogers, Michael Norman, Jessica Sheldon, Anthony Ritchie, Kyle Matthews, Preston Blord, Dorian Facepuncher, Kevin Shearer, Seth Cole, and Trent Dunham. With that being said, thank you guys for watching the Daytona 500 and to conclude Daytona Speedweek. Next race, we head west to California Speedway for the California 400. But until then, I am Levi McIntyre, and here are your results, rookie points and regular points heading into Cali, and I am officially signing off.